Well, it's a little wet out today, but we're looking at a beautiful bike. This is the Bianchi T-Tronik C-Type. It's the wave or deep step-through offering, but they also have a T-Type they call step-through, which is actually like a mid-step, so it has an extra bar right here. And then they have just the standard T-Type that's more of a diamond frame. Those are gonna be a little bit stiffer. This one's just super approachable, and it comes in 2 frame sizes. We're on the smaller of the 2 right now. It also comes in 2 different colorways. So we have like a metallic bronze or this dark metallic blue with some black accents. $2,700 US for this, and Bianchi has really just entered the scene in the past couple of years in North America. We have like 278 dealers, which is pretty awesome. This is like a dealer specific type of brand, a little bit higher quality, and they're using nicer drive systems and components. In this case, we have the Shimano E6100 mid-drive motor. Very efficient, but offers up to 60 Newton meters of torque, and it's just very compact. It's like a slimmer Q factor. We've got this hollow spindle down here, some nice components, and a really good drivetrain, 9-speed back here. Sunrace M9 derailleur, and it's got a clutch system right here, so off or on, keeps it a little bit tighter for when you're riding. You don't get as much chain slap, but then you turn it off and it's easier to do wheel maintenance. Standard hub spacing on this bike with 100 millimeters up front and a 9 millimeter quick release skewer. In the back, 135 millimeters with, again, 9 millimeter axle quick release skewer. These tires are pretty interesting as well. I hadn't really seen these before. Chaoyang E-Liner 50, so I believe that's kind of an e-bike rating of up to 50 kilometers per hour. This being a class 1 electric bike can get up to 32 kilometers per hour, so 20 miles per hour. This is the most permissible type of electric bike out there. It's pedal assist, and coming back to this Sunrace and the cassette, 9 speeds, 11 to 36 tooth, so it's a pretty healthy spread, and there are a bunch of steps in between, so you can really get that comfortable pedal cadence and just enjoy this. Maybe as a commuter bike, you'll notice that it does have these 60 millimeter plastic fenders front and rear. We also have integrated lights, pretty nice back here. This AXA Juno, it's got a bright LED in the middle, and I believe like a light pipe that goes through, and it shines out the side, so good on them. I'm always thinking about safety. You'll notice that the tires have reflective sidewall stripes, and there's that headlight that is aimable, and it's kind of got that top cutoff, so it shouldn't shine into oncoming traffic. It doesn't swivel at the top, it swivels down here at the base. So I noticed it's kind of, if you aim it down too much, it could get blocked a little bit by that fender, but it's still elevated a little bit. A lot of times when a company mounts the light to the arch of the suspension fork, I'm thinking like, oh, it's unsprung, meaning it's bouncing up and down with this portion of the fork versus being up here a little bit higher and maybe sprung. It might not rattle out of position as much, but it does have a tightening bolt right there if you want to. And again, it has those side cutouts, so I really appreciate that, having lights, having the reflective tires. And then I believe these also have like rhino skin, some puncture protection, really nice hardware, black hub, black spokes, and reinforcement eyelets along those rims so they might not crack as easily. Just a little bit of an upgrade. 170 millimeter crank arms and these nice aluminum alloy platform pedals that give you a good amount of space. So I'm wearing boots today, and sometimes you get on these tiny little pedals that bend if the bike tips over, or they're steel and they can rust. These are aluminum alloy, they've got reflectors, and I'm really happy with that choice. We also have a plastic chain cover, so if you're riding around with pants or maybe a dress or something, it's not going to touch the chain ring. This is just a standard steel chain ring. It's not narrow wide or anything, but you're really, this isn't a mountain bike, so I feel like it's a pretty decent setup. 63 millimeters of travel on that suspension fork. It's a little bit basic. This is a spring fork, SR Sun Tour. We do have preload adjust under these caps, but you have to pull them off and they can crack, and you have to adjust them carefully in tandem to get that preload setup. I don't mess with those usually, but if you were a fairly heavy person and you felt like it was bottoming out, you could technically adjust those, and that's how you do it. 31.6 millimeters on this rigid seat post, and that's another area where you could improve the comfort a little bit. You could replace that with a suspension post. Now that is going to add a few inches to your minimum saddle height. So this has a really low standover height, but you know, you're still gonna have to kind of pick yourself up to get on the saddle. I've got it set high for myself right now, so I have full leg extension, which is very comfortable for me, and it's a little bit more efficient. But some people might want to have that saddle low so you can actually touch the ground when stabilizing the bike. This is 56 pounds, so it's a fairly heavy bike. Part of that is because of the, you know, steel stanchions and this spring suspension fork, the fenders, the lights, and this rear rack. Okay, so this is a fairly highly rated rear rack. Rack time. It's compatible with certain accessories that interface. It's got a spring latch on top. This is standard gauge tubing for adding panniers on the side. 25 kilogram max load, 55 pounds. So again, above average, really nice. Maybe you want to use that with like a child carrier or some of their accessories, but this does add a little bit of weight. This is a Cellular Royale, a Senza saddle, feeling very comfortable, a little bit wider here. And we've got these ergonomic grips, non-locking. So that's an area where if you really bear down on these, they could twist a little bit. Not real expensive if you want to replace them. And I prefer ergonomic like this. So I think they're doing all right. Coming back down to that Sunrace derailleur, these trigger shifters are also Sunrace. And at first I thought, oh, I can push this because there's this sort of rounded front edge. And I like to use my thumbs when shifting both gears, high and low. But that's not actually the case. I have to use my pointer finger to go to a higher gear and then my thumb to go to a lower gear. And I can only do one at a time, which might be an e-bike specific decision. I've noticed that SRAM does that with some of their systems, because if you're trying to shift too many gears at once and you've got the power of that motor supporting you, it could, you know, damage the chain or bend some of the teeth on the cassette. So it's, you know, it's decent, but again, a lot of times I'm using my pointer finger and my middle finger to activate the brakes. Now, I believe this bike would come with Shimano brakes, but depending on supply chain, you might see Tektro or this brand here, they will have adjustable reach levers, so you can bring them in a little bit if you are more petite, you have smaller hands. We've got 160 millimeter rotors front and rear with dual piston calipers. You know, pretty standard, kind of makes sense. Again, these wheels being 700 by 45C, they're a little bit wider than like a true road bike. And that gives you a bit more stability side to side, a little bit more air volume for comfort. There's actually a decent PSI pressure spread, so you can lower the pressure, but it's not going to be quite as efficient. So back to that comfort trade-off. Again, 63 millimeters of travel, kind of a hardtail setup here, but the tires can go a long way in adding comfort. And with the, you know, roughly 29-inch diameter, you get a lower attack angle. You can smooth over these cracks and over curbs and stuff like that. So I think this was a nice tire choice, and all in all, the bike is feeling really stable because the battery weight and the motor weight is right there at the center of the bike, about 6 pounds. So, you know, 12 pounds worth of weight right there in the center where you'd want it. And the kickstand has been working well. I've propped the bike up a little bit using a stone for the photos, but it's feeling very stable and it is adjustable. So I could have used a tool to extend that, but most of the time with an e-bike, you know, you want the weight tipping a little bit so the bike isn't just right on the edge and gonna tip over. The Shimano Steps ecosystem is pretty good, and we've actually got a Philion battery inside as well as a charger. But before we get to those, I want to mention we do have a magnet and then a reader back here. And if you're using this bike a lot and it gets dirty, or if that gets bumped, you could get a read error. So that's one of the 3 signals. It's rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque. It's very dynamic and natural. If you just pedal gently, even if you're in the higher levels of assist, the bike feels stable. It feels very responsive, and if you push harder, it takes right off. It's pretty impressive, and again, one of the more efficient systems that I've used, but I wanted to call that out. And then I also want to mention that the charging port, it's low on the frame and it's on the non-drivetrain side. So it's okay to have stuff on this side, but you'll notice the bike is tipping towards me. You can see the locking cylinder and the charge port, and I have to bend down every time to charge this, and it's in the path of that left crank arm. Okay, so if it was plugged in, it could get bumped out of position. It's not my favorite. I would actually prefer if this was up high on the right side of the frame, because it would be a little bit more accessible. Now, you can charge the battery on or off the frame, but I find a lot of times, you know, if I have a garage or something, I'm just pulling up to the socket and plugging it in. Let's take a look at that charger really quick here. Weighs exactly 1.5 pounds, and it's got a proprietary interface. And here it is, Philion. So that's the brand of the charger and the battery. Interesting because most of the other parts are Shimano, including the motor and the display. Go ahead and take this off real quick and show you what it looks like. The battery cover here is aluminum alloy, just like the frame. So it's pretty sturdy. It's a little bit heavier, and it's got these rubberized pads, probably to reduce vibration. I think this weighs about a pound. I mean, it's a little bit heavier, and it doesn't lock to the frame. So at any time, someone could just sort of take this, and then you'd be left with this open cavity. It doesn't look quite as nice. We'll take the keys over here, insert it, and twist it. And you can see this battery pops up a little bit, and then you start to pull. Again, 5.9 pounds on this battery. We do have a charge level indicator built in somewhere. Oh, there it is. So if you took this inside to charge it, you could get an idea of how full it is. You wouldn't have to put it back on the bike just to check. It's best practices to keep these in a cool, dry environment. It's a little wet right now, but we've got a pretty high IP ingress protection rating and water resistance rating. This bike has a 2-year comprehensive warranty with 5 years on the frame. And again, all those dealers and all that support, that's a good thing. 417 watt hours. So it's not the highest capacity battery, but that helps it be a little bit more affordable. Again, 2,700 bucks and maybe light. So we'll just line this up. And I like that I can just push on it and it clicks right into place. I didn't have to even have the keys inserted. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those keys out again, push down on it. There we go, clicked into position. I had to use 2 hands to do that. And then we put the cover on again and then secure that. Okay, at this point, if the bike was all charged up, you're ready to go. The next step is to press this power button right here. And thankfully it's fairly reachable because I'm used to seeing the power buttons on the display panel. And this is something about the Shimano e-bikes, not just this one, but a lot of times it's separate and it's easy to sort of forget. And then, you know, depends on where it's located, but you have to kind of reach for it a little bit. So I press this for a couple seconds, the display starts to light up. There we go. And I really like this display. It's not quite as advanced as this other little display that some of the Shimano e-bikes have, but it still interfaces with the E-Tube app, and you can tune some of the e-bike modes and adjust the settings a little bit. It's not the most advanced app, but it still works. There isn't a USB charging port or anything. You can't really tap into the electricity here for your phone, so keep that in mind. And again, it's a lower capacity battery. So you've got 3 levels of assist. 1, 2, 3. You can take it all the way off if you want to and just ride it as a heavy bike with integrated lights. That's not a bad thing. We've got a battery indicator at the top right, 5 bars, so each bar is 20%. It's not super precise, but we do have range as well, so that helps. And then we have current speed, miles per hour. Range is the current setting down here, so if I go from no assist to level 1, it says 52 miles. They estimate that it can go 60 miles. I think it could go even farther than that. Maybe they're just being a little bit conservative. If we take it all the way up to the highest level of assist, it's all the way down to 26. So maybe 30 to 60 mile range. And then if we press the circle, we can get distance. That's sort of like trip distance. And then odometer, so 5 miles. There are a couple extra little secrets here. If we hold the minus button for just a second, it says like foot, that's walk mode, and you have to press it one more time and then the bike will push itself. So that's really handy if you have this loaded up with cargo or maybe a child seat and you get into an environment where it's just too technical or crowded and you want to walk the bike. So again, 56 pounds, getting help from the bike is very welcome. And then this little button down here, that's the light button. So if we press it, you can see the lights turn on and off. Not bad. So yeah, kind of everything you need. It's reachable, not the fanciest, it's a smaller screen, but it is backlit. And I think, you know, I'm happy with it. Got a little flick bell up there. So that's it. Good day to have fenders. I think I'm gonna hop on this bike and take it for a little test ride. Okay, I'm in the highest level of assist. I like to test in this level because you can hear the motor more than the other ones and just get a sense for how powerful it is. These feel really satisfying and light and nimble, surprisingly, because again, 60 Newton meters, some of the Bosch stuff is like 85 Newton meters, but still, for a relatively lightweight guy, I'm like 140 pounds, 5'9". This kind of bike feels really good, and the motor's just so quiet, so listen for that. Yeah, very nice. I can hear it, especially at higher pedal cadence. But I think this motor is designed to support over 120 RPM. So that's another thing. If you're shifting down to the lowest gear, the motor is going to be able to keep up with you, just like the other big guys. Bosch, Rosa, Shimano. Fairly stable as well, and I can see the water spraying out from that fender up at the front. But I'm doing pretty well. And the brakes are doing pretty well too. I'm not hearing a lot of squeaking, which is nice. Although it does not have shift detection, if you just ease off a little bit when shifting, it all goes very smoothly. There we go, using the right brake this time. 160 millimeter rotors, it's just kind of like, okay, that works for a city bike. I'm seeing 180s and even 203 millimeters on the mountain bikes and stuff, because you're going down and you're just, you know, really heating up that disc, and you need all the stopping power you can get. It's easy to forget that those bigger rotors, they also stick out a lot more, and if you get to a bike rack, it's easier to get them bent, and then you'll hear this like zing, 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 zing whenever you ride. So I think I understand what they went for. And even though I'm getting wet from the rain, I'm not feeling it a whole lot on my feet and my shins. So again, I want to compliment the fenders. They've been pretty quiet too. I wanted to go off a curb. Okay, let's listen to those fenders and that kickstand. Wow, really quiet, really tight. Well guys, that's the Bianchi T-Tronik C-Type. Interesting to see how hard they work to get this color matched and to have a super durable, heavy duty cover. Sometimes I'll see these, you know, internal batteries mount from the bottom, and I definitely prefer the top. It's just easier to support the battery when I'm putting it into the frame like this. And I love that there's an adjustable angle stem, so you can dial this thing in a lot between the sizes and the low saddle height, minimum saddle height, and just the quick release and stuff. Back at ElectricBikeReview.com, I've recorded all the specs that I could gather for this bike. I also have a comparison tool, so you could look at some of the other like commuter bikes, city bikes like this, and kind of go back to back. Maybe you're price shopping or you're looking for a dealer that's nearby. I've got a map that helps you find them. There's also forums and comments, so you can see what accessories work well and just what people think of Bianchi in general. This company's been around for over 100 years. It's Italian. They have a rich heritage in the cycling industry. I think that's about it. I love you. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.